All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast, and today's episode is a beauty. Folks, we've surveyed over 13,000 people, and we've asked them the question, what does money mean to you? So we get an insider's look at the decisions and the drivers that help people take action and build their financial future. Ben, what else do we cover?
Well, Bryce, there's a cost of living crisis going on, so households are looking at their budget. So we'll reveal the number of people who are trying budgeting for the very first time. And in what's making property news, we'll also reveal the state that's actually going backwards in the number of rental accommodation available.
The state's going backwards, folks. You've got to hear who that is. Let's rip into the show.
Welcome to the Property Couch, where each week you get to listen to two of Australia's leading experts. Bryce Holdaway, co-host of Location Australia on Foxtel's Lifestyle Channel, co-host of Escape from the City on the ABC, and partner of Empower Wealth Advisory. Ben Kingsley, chair of Property Investors Council of Australia and the founder of Empower Wealth Advisory, named the 2018 and 2019 Property Advisory Firm of the Year. Stay tuned as they bring you the insider's guide to property, finance, and money management.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Property Couch podcast, mate, and welcome back to you too, which is actually the last episode before summer.
It's exciting, isn't it? We turn 1 December, move into summer tomorrow. It's all go from here, mate. It's all go.
Well, for some people, summer's exciting, Ben, and for others like us in Victoria, we'll still get our 4 seasons in one day. I dropped mum and dad off at the bus station earlier this year because they get on the Gull and they go up the highway to the Melbourne airport.
Yeah,
and they were looking forward to going home to 30 plus extreme weather, whereas they just experienced 2 weeks down here in Torquay on let's just say mild weather, Ben. So I'm kind of hoping that summer turns up this year. Well, for those people in Perth or Adelaide or Queensland, they're probably enjoying all the summer.
Yeah, all predictions are that we're going to have a dry, hot summer, but it just hasn't arrived in Victoria yet.
Yeah. So, very good. Hey, we want to talk a bit today about what does money mean to people, Ben. We've got this really awesome episode planned. So as a bit of a lead up to that, I'd like to get you to give us a bit of an update around more because apparently we've done something to the engine, mate.
Yeah, we've done a huge thing to the engine. We've supercharged that, Bryce, but I want to tell a little bit of a backstory, right? So effectively what we have noticed that gone are the days of cheap money, low interest rates, and obviously we've got inflation as a big part of that problem. So our costs have skyrocketed across households. And I can give you a couple of indications in terms of how that's showing up in the research. I was reading a couple of things from NAB recently. One thing which was really interesting was this idea that 4 out of 10 households are trying budgeting for the first time. Now, part of me says that's
progress.
But it also says to me, in a time of so-called crisis, where we've got a cost of living crisis, and still only...
What happened to the other 6?
What happened to what are they doing? What are they doing about managing the money? But here's the other interesting one, right? And this one was, hot off the press. 1.5 million NAB customers have used their online banking platform to check in on their spending. And we know all bank apps have an attempt these days at sort of classifying spending. Because, like ultimately, if our bank balances are going down or our savings accounts are going down, and that's definitely what we're seeing in the data, people are starting to work out, well, where does it all go? And that is, what I wanted to highlight today in terms of the massive supercharging of our engine. Because when you look at your bank apps, you get sort of really generic top line sort of insights. So an example would be, what do I spend on the home? What do I spend on transport? What do I spend on food? And you really don't get any other insight as, oh, gee, that's a big number. But what do I do with that number? Now, obviously, through our book, our best-selling book in terms of Make Money Simple Again and the Money Smart system, we've always had a rules-based system. And so we start off with, in terms of financial classifications, and they are, income, expenditure, borrowings, and assets. And then we have, and we introduced as part of the Money Smart system, what we call financial items. Okay. And they are rich, deeper categorizations. And we have got effectively usually 2 to 3 times more of those item layers and those category layers. But what we've just done, and this is the big announcement today, Bryce,
here we go.
is we've supercharged that engine and we've released a whole new sort of tool inside More called My Financials. And it's the engine room. So when we talked about releasing Wealth Clock and Wealth Speed, and we did a car analogy, that's the dashboard. You've got the speedometer and the odometer, and that's giving us an indication. Well, we've taken the old engine out, which was a pretty good engine, mind you. It did the job, but we're supercharged the engine now by introducing what we refer to as the next layer down, the next tier down, which we call Card View. And so inside Card View, by way of example, where is my spending going? So if I have something like recreational sport and hobbies, and I have like $4,000 going to that, well, that's nice to know, but what's under that? Like where is that money going? And so what I'm able to now do is to add a new card that links into the item. So I might have, say, in our case, I've got Jack's Taekwondo, I've got Jack's swimming, I've got Harry's basketball, Harry's football, Jane's whatever, my whatever. And so I'm now able to get that next layer. That sums up to the item level. But in terms of this, we are going to be able to give deeper and richer insights. So when you truly want to know where your money is actually going, you're going to be able to do it better on More than any of the other personal financial management apps and applications out there. So that's from today now available on both the mobile version as well as the web version. And this is just the start of it, Bryce. At the end of summer series, we are going to be talking about what I'm going to refer to as a financial time machine. Right. And that's the only clue. It's the only clue I'm going to give you. But if you think about where I'm going with that, I'm talking about these deep, richer insights. So one, the user experience will be a lot more efficient, a lot easier. You'll know where all your money's going. The dashboards will be richer and all those types of things. But this is a big step for us in terms of re-supercharging the engine, changing the engine out, bringing a new engine in, and everything is built off this core. So My Financials will be the core engine that is basically going to run the platform. So coming back to the story of doing budgeting and those types of things, I'll close out a little reminder in my closing comments after we talk about, what money means to people, because I think there's a nice little segue that brings all of that together.
So, folks, it's super exciting. A couple of things. The Card View was available on mobile, but it's now available on desktop. And what we learned over the journey, Ben, is a lot of people use mobile on the run, but desktop to do the grunt work, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense that they can actually do that grunt work in the cards, which is really, really cool. And also it's kind of nice to reflect at this point in time where we go, this More platform up in the cloud that's now got a new engine that goes with the Speedo and the Taco. It started out as a humble old Excel spreadsheet, Ben, and then that spreadsheet grew some macros and some formulas, and those macros and formulas took time to crunch the numbers, and then over time we developed it into what it is now. And it's kind of nice to know that where the evolution's come from. Humble Excel spreadsheet. But folks, here's the call out to you, right? We understand that to Ben's point earlier, that 6 out of 10 people are not doing a budget. If you feel like you fall into that 6 out of 10, there's an opportunity for you. You'll be listening to this. If you're listening to it as it comes out, it'll be Thursday, the 30th of November. If you're listening to it into December or into January, it's still a wonderful opportunity while everything starts to slow down for you to actually go on, get yourself a free More account, and that's moorr.com.au. Get a free account, start putting your numbers in, and actually trapping the surplus. Because we've said it a few times, Ben, but it's a simple game. Spend less than you earn. And when you spend less than you earn, you actually have to know how much surplus is left over at the end, because you have confidence around how much surplus is left over. You can actually invest it in two ways. One, in your immediate lifestyle, Ben, or you can invest it into your future, or perhaps a little hybrid of both, Ben. And then all you need to do is get some assets and hold on to them and wait. So it's really important that you get this opportunity in a free platform to actually get visibility and line of sight on your numbers, because you'll do all the grunt work on your desktop, and then lo and behold, as you're walking along, it'll be available on your mobile or whatever your sort of mobile application is, so that when you're actually at the point of making the spending, you can actually record those expenses and then come back and analyze it. And 2024, we're saying it here, folks, mark our words, 2024 will be the best year yet for the More platform, for the insights and the amount of heavy lifting that you can actually see in your financial future and what you can actually do with your money, and actually fulfill that very simple formula of spend less than you earn, trap the surplus, and invest it for your future, Ben.
Well, I put a challenge out to the people who are currently doing the budgeting. Right? I mean, there's a lot of people that just will keep their head in the sands no matter what we say. But the ones who are running spreadsheets or who are running other sort of platforms, I challenge them to actually compare the pair, put them side by side with each other and have a look at the features and the tool set that's available in there, because it's obviously been built by an advisory business that served thousands and thousands of clients. So we know the subject matter knowledge. We know what works and what doesn't work from a behavioral point of view. And so we're wedging all of that information into a platform to allow the general public to also use. So it's definitely an opportunity for those people who want to get organized and get motivated and hopefully get inspired by summer series that's about to come up.
Well said, Ben. So check that out, folks. I'll just give you that URL again. It's not MORE, Ben. It's MOOR.com.au. Go and check it out. There's a whole blog. You can see all the latest features. You can see what the latest releases are. You can see all the explanations behind that. And folks, if it sounds like we're laboring on this point, 2 points to that. One, we are. And two, it's free. You can go and check it out for real, for free, folks. So go to MOOR.com.au and check it out. Hey, today we've got a super exciting episode planned for you. We are actually going to share some insights that we get from the privileged position that we get to see across 13,000 plus records that we've collated to get the data for today, to give you a little insight into the psyche of people and what money means to them. And so in terms of setting that up today, Ben, in my Mindset Minute theme, the question is, where are the clients' yachts, right? So Fred Schwed, SCHWED, Fred Schwed, I'm not making that up, Jr., was a professional trader who quit Wall Street after losing a lot of his money in the crash of 1929. So in 1940, he wrote an investment classic called Where Are the Customers' Yachts? So the joke behind the title has been retold in many different ways over the years, but in Schwed's version, a successful Wall Street broker named William Travers is admiring the many beautiful yachts whilst on vacation in Newport, Rhode Island. So after each yacht he inquires about happens to belong to a broker or a banker or a trader. So he then begs to sort of ask the question, but where are the customers' yachts? And therein lies the point of the story, Ben. So nearly 75 years have passed since this story was first published, but it could have been written yesterday. So where are the customers' yachts? Important observation. Bankers, traders, brokers had all these amazing yachts, but when asking the simple question of where are the clients' yachts, it was silence. There was, of course, no clients' yachts. So it kind of made me think of my favorite scene from The Wolf of Wall Street, Ben. So I'm just going to cut that scene in now, and we'll have a little listen.
I gotta say, I'm incredibly excited to be a part of your firm. The clients you have are absolutely
the clients. Your only responsibility is to put meat on the table. You got a girlfriend?
I'm married to Teresa. She cuts hair.
Think about Teresa. Name of the game? Move the money from your client's pocket into your pocket.
Right, but if you can make the client's money at the same time, it's advantageous to everyone, am I correct?
No. Number one rule of Wall Street. Nobody, okay, if you're Warren Buffett or if you're Jimmy Buffett, nobody knows if a stock is going to go up, down, sideways, or in circles. Least of all stockbrokers. It's all a fugazi. You know what a fugazi is?
It's a fake.
Yeah, fugazi, it's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's a fairy dust. It doesn't exist. It's never landed. It is no matter. It's not on the elemental chart. It's not real. We don't create shit. We don't build anything. So if you got a client who bought stock at 8 and it now sits at 16 and he's all happy, he wants to cash in, liquidate, take his money and run home, you don't let him do that because that would make it real. But you and me, the brokers, we're taking home cold hard cash via commission.
Okay, so thanks to our team for bleeping out some of the important words there, Ben. But the whole point of the story was that it's not about the client. It's about how the person who's in the middle, the agency relationship, can make as much commission as they can. So it kind of highlights the story about where the customer's yacht. So Charlie Munger famously said people will ignore all sorts of facts if their paycheck depends on it, right? So here's what we're hoping our legacy will be for many of the people who have listened to us. And that's that they are able to buy their proverbial boat, right? We actually do want to know where the client's boats are. So in reflecting on our business, Ben, we've been around for 16 years as a business, and given our game is a 2-decade plus game that we're playing with our clients, we're about 5 years away from that 20-year mark. So from those early clients who've been doing that for a decade. So we get to tell the stories of our clients and our listeners that are already buying their boat. So we're kind of hoping that that's the space that we're playing in this podcast with our clients, with the information that we're sharing with the people who've acted on the advice that we give on this podcast. So we want you to have your proverbial boat. So that's what we think is contribution. We're looking forward to sharing those stories, and that's Lifestyle by Design, Ben. So something there for us to think about around what the actual aim of the game is here, because there is an industry that is set up in a way for the people in the industry to do really well. But at the end of the day, you've got to be measured. Your success is 100% got to be measured by the outcomes that you get for the people that you're trying to help, right?
Yeah, love it. Love it. And that's a beautiful segue into talking about what money means to you. So a lot of the time when you're sitting down in front of clients for the first time, and if you've never had any professional advice done before, if someone asks you the question, what does money mean to you? A lot of people find it challenging to really articulate that in a refined way. They're sort of like, oh, I don't know, it just probably allows me to do the things that I want to do and all of that. So we, as part of the discovery work that we do for our clients, we ask them that question as part of the sort of getting to know you stage. So we know that we've got alignment around what's important for you and what you're trying to set about achieving. Now, since developing the platform from the My Wealth portal and then obviously branding it across to more, we have that discovery section still inside there. So a lot of the public users, as well as obviously over the 16 years that we've been doing this work, we've been collecting that data. And it's really important to align the monetary aspects of what we're trying to do to marry in with what it means to that individual customer. We've been all about tailored solutions from day one. We want to make sure that that story takes part. So that's effectively what we try and do. And, in terms of doing that, we want to also start to think about, well, if that then resonates with them and they connect with that story, and we start to thinking about big rocks in the jar and all of those goals that they want to achieve, then all of a sudden we see that as around that success. And it's that success that leaves clues for us. And so, when we think about the summer series and how that's going to sort of play out, we know that they did take action, right? And we're big on action taking here. And we know that how they took action was they spent less than they earned, they trapped the surplus, and and they had a clear plan in terms of doing that. So I'll talk to that in closing comments later. And to Bryce's point, he mentioned earlier, they invest the surplus. And they do that through a planning exercise. And there's two critical reasons why you do that. It reduces the number of mistakes, number one. And two, your job is to maximize your money to work harder for you. So by way of simple example, if you put your money into a bank account, a check account, an everyday check account or savings account, and you're earning 1%, but you could have money in a term deposit that's earning 5%, well, the power of compound means that 5% is going to give you a maximum return. And there's all different types of returns out there, and there's higher risk things that you can get into. But we try to do sensible gearing through property so we get that leverage cash on cash return into what has traditionally been a low volatile asset, as long as we're buying in established areas where there's low risk of oversupply. So that's the scene setter. And you're going to get that in spades throughout the course of the summer series. What it does lead into is then, okay, well, what's their why? Why have they gone about? What has been those core motivations? And that's what we're going to be, as I said to you, just unpacking today as part of these over 13,300 odd questionnaires that we've received. We've done the collation work and we're about to share that, aren't we, Bryce?
We are. So if you think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we need to sort of think about these in terms of that. Now, there's a heap of models, right? But the first one is your physiological needs. So your air, water, food, shelter, sleep, clothing, reproduction, those sorts of things. The next layer above is your safety. So personal security, employment, your resources, your health, your property. The next layer up is love and belonging. So your friendships, your intimacy, family, sense of connection. Next level up again is esteem. So your respect, your self-esteem, status, recognition, strength and freedom. And then the final of those hierarchies is self-actualisation. So that's the desire to become the most that one can be. That's that contribution level, right? So the top 10, what we've tried to do, Ben, is overlay the top 10 into where they rank here in Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So what does money mean to them? So interestingly, Ben, there is... I think there's one in each category here, at least one in each category. So if we go, we count them down from 10 to 1. Number 10, Ben, is lifestyle choices. Lifestyle by design. Kind of makes sense. So we've put that in the category of esteem, so the fourth level of the hierarchy of needs, thinking of that from the perspective of freedom. So lifestyle choices. So I'll riff through the first 5 and then you can cover them down to 1, Ben. So number 9 is peace of mind. Again, we put that into the esteem category in terms of your need. Number 8 is comfort. People want comfort. So that's a physiological need. That's your first basic need there, Ben, around that comfort. Number 7, stability. Stability. So I've put that as a safety need. So the second level in Maslow's needs. And then number 6, Ben, is time with family. So that's the third level of the needs around love and belonging. So number 10 was lifestyle choice. Number 9 was peace of mind. Number 8 was comfort. Number 7 was stability. And Ben, number 6 was time with family.
All right, so let's move into the final 5, counting them down. So number 5 is travel. So travel definitely fits into the esteem in terms of, it does create that great sense of experience and memories created from that, and that freedom element associated with that as well. And it's a part of that reward for effort in terms of being able to have those wonderful experiences. Number 4 is providing for family. So that's that psychological and physiological sort of need in terms of connection and togetherness. So it's essential, especially if you have a family, you want to protect them, you want to care for them. So that's a fundamental one. Then moving on to number 3, we've got work-life balance. So then we come down to number 2, and that is freedom. And obviously that's a clear winner in time. Freedom. I mean, it is a powerful driver that most of us aspire to in terms of being in control of our own time and our own destiny as part of that particular story. And then number 1, drum roll for number 1, security. So absolutely fundamental safety need in terms of being able to. So once we've got that physical and psychological element of understanding, we move up into that safety need. So that was a clear winner. We're going to sort of talk about the numbers in a minute, but it's really, if I know that I'm safe, then I can explore the next ideas of what safety allows me. And so when we talk about lifestyle by design, there's a clear connection in the societies that we live in, that part of that does have a monetary component to it, right? So in terms of providing security and safety, that can come in housing, our own place, our own assets, our own things, and then also we talk about education and health for our kids. So all of those things sort of become part of that overall security layer. And so by far, it is the most powerful driver for people when they start thinking about, well, if I want security, and to get security, I need to take action. And I know that I'll need some money to be able to do that. So I won't be able to rely on governments or handouts or charity to be able to provide that for myself. And I certainly won't be able to provide freedom or work-life balance as part of that particular story.
Now, folks, just to give you some context, there were options around things. They could have put the finer things in life. They could have put a holiday home. They could have put a better car. They could have put more big kids' toys and jewelry and all these sorts of things. But interestingly, in those top 10, none of those things came to ranked that highly, right? So people get to choose multiple ones. But if we go again, lifestyle choices, peace of mind. Number 8 is comfort. Number 7, stability. Number 6, time with family. Number 5 is travel. Number 4 is providing for family. Number 3 is work-life balance. Number 2 is freedom, and number 1 is security. So it's really interesting, and that is a size of people that have been surveyed that is significant. Like, we are talking about 13,832 respondents here. We're not talking about a couple of hundred men. So we could definitely see the trends that have been identified. So we're going to spend a bit of time unpacking those top 2 because clearly they're really important. You'll see soon when we go through some of the numbers that they were overwhelmingly voted for the folks here. But what does security provide people, Ben? Well, it gives them a sense of resilience because they might get some unexpected setbacks, and also gives them a buffer against life's uncertainties. So if you life. So it's important for us. So security provides you with that resilience for those setbacks and life's uncertainties, Ben. So it kind of makes sense, right?
Yeah, it does. I mean, I talk about that as the buffers against those life uncertainties. So a great segue. The other one then is simplicity, right? So, in terms of true financial security comes from living within your means. So that's the classic case for us in terms of keep it simple, right? Spend less than you earn in terms of what that looks like, and then avoid unnecessary complexity in your financial life. Now, we've tried to teach people the Money Smart system. It's a pretty simple rules-based system, less than 10 minutes a month to check in on that particular story. And now that with obviously the more platform giving greater depth of insight, but you don't necessarily have to go granular if you don't want to. You can still keep it really simple in terms of, I know that recreational sports and hobbies, I spend X number, and I know where that's going, so I don't need to worry about it. So do I need to make extra cards for that? Those people who do make those extra cards, because they want to track that history over time in terms of what they're spent on certain elements. So you can go deep if you want to go deep, or you can just basically keep it also at that sort of simplified level. But this also talks to, from an investment point of view, is keep it relatively simple. Property investment is, okay, well, I understand it. It's concrete, it's physical. I can understand what's involved in it. There's borrowings involved in it. There's repaying that. There's, maintaining the asset. So it's not difficult. If you start talking about companies involved in certain mining exploration or things like that, lots of compliance or risks associated, you lose a lot of that simplicity. So that's why I think a lot of people like residential property, because they understand it because of its simplicity.
Yeah, the next one is to think about the flexibility and adaptability, right? So adapting to changing circumstances that allows you to adjust your plans as those expectations in life unfolds, right? So if you feel like whatever comes at you, you have the ability to move and pivot and take another path, or if you've arrived at a fork of the road that was something outside of your control, that flexibility and adaptability is definitely part of the security. So adapting to changing circumstances and adjusting your plans, Ben.
Yeah, and I think one of the other things that shows up from years of dealing with customers face to face and the learnings that we get, behavioral discipline. So most people who are looking at security, they look at, they are usually rational. They're making informed and educated decisions. They're not necessarily super impulsive. And as part of that, they're limiting the risk of making bad decisions. Okay, so that's about get educated, build trust, and then build understanding, and then take action as part of, that empowering, sort of cycle that you go through.
So I guess to round out what security brings is just a general peace of mind. If you feel secure around that sense of peace and confidence in your financial situation, it frees up mental space so that you can then focus on what matters to you, whether it's your hobbies or your family or whatever the other things that are important. But it takes away that niggle and that constant preoccupation that comes from financial worry. So if you want to be free of that, it kind of makes sense that you want to have that sense of security that you don't need to be worried about that. Your mind is better off freed up from a lot of that constant nag and worry, and that really comes from security. So Ben, for that to poll at number one makes sense. It provides resilience. It provides you with simplicity. There's the behavioural discipline element of that. It gives you that flexibility and adaptability, but overall, overwhelmingly, and the reason that it's in our view that it became number one is just that sense of peace of mind, that mental peace, that financial peace that comes from having that security.
Yeah, well summarised. So let's now talk about freedom, because this one is quite fascinating. We all want it, and we all want it yesterday. So if we can't have it yesterday, there's this sort of delayed gratification sort of story that we're talking about here. And so when people are thinking and talking about freedom, there is absolutely an impatience around what that looks like. And when they see on social media, they see social envy from everyone else doing all of those other things, they get a resistance or frustration around what that freedom looks like. So it's high on desire, but it also has an impatient element to it. So as part of the work we try and do on this pod and any professional advice work that you get, is you've got to set expectations around this particular thing, because to have true freedom, you need to have financial independence. Okay. And so there will be that element of working towards that outcome. But when you get there, this is what it looks like. Number one, there's true autonomy here, right? So you have then autonomy to make those decisions. You are ultimately then, solely in control of where you allocate your money and how that money potentially works for you. So you're not solely driven by the need to earn money, because what you've actually done there is you've created a nest egg big enough where the passive income is actually doing a lot of that work for you. So your exertion and your time has basically been freed up because you've been able to build that wealth base up. And that's the vision of what Wealth Speed's all about. It's about making you opportunity or problem aware, depending on your situation, to try and change those habits. And I'll tell you, that freedom, that peace of mind that comes with that element of choice is quite empowering. But just be mindful that it's going to take time. And that's why a lot of people, the vast majority of Australians, aren't prepared to put the effort in to make that outcome occur. So we really tap into the people who are saying, well, freedom's really high on our agenda. Then great. Well, this is the work that's got to go into that particular approach. And you'll hear more about that in your Lifehack later.
Yeah, and I guess freedom has many parts to many people, and even some of the stuff that we cover off won't be enough to cover off what it means for everyone. But I feel like the next one is universal, Ben. It's the thing that is constant across all of us. No one has more of this than anyone else, and that's time. Freedom gives you time wealth, right? So it gives you the ability to have that control over your time. So if you're someone now who has to go and work, and the key point of that sentence was has to go and work, well, then you do not have the time wealth. So it kind of makes sense that a lot of people really want that. And interestingly, a lot of people don't necessarily not want to work. A lot of people still want some form of meaningful activity in their life. But it also means that they want that choice over how they spend their time, so that they get to spend it on the things that matter most to them. So for me personally, this is the one that I think resonates with me the most. There's a bunch of others we'll go through shortly here, Ben. But if you actually think really about it, do you want another flashy thing more than you actually just want to be in control of your own time? I reckon when we really sort of marinate in that thought, I reckon a lot of people would love to have the destiny on whether they roll over or roll out each morning, based on what's required of them, based on what choices they have. So it's kind of the highest dividend money pays, as Morgan Housel tells us, Ben, to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want. So it's kind of critical that freedom talks about time wealth.
There is no other more powerful outcome than time wealth, Bryce.
Mm.
But there are others to talk about. A lot of people, when they're making decisions around big rocks in the jar in their life and their patience or impatience, situations will occur where they'll tell themselves a story, so story state strategy in their mind, and they'll say, well, I want what these people have got, and I don't want to have to build it up. And so if I buy a home, I lose my freedoms because I'm going to be in the debt trap. And so they make a judgment in the short term, the here and now, that sort of says, I'm going to have freedom, but it's not. They will never get into a position where they'll have true freedom. And so they are putting themselves into a worse position by not actually choosing long-term freedom as opposed to what they call short-term, I suppose, in their mind, happiness, right? So we do a lot of work around, those people who are coming to see us. And obviously part of our mission on the pod is to tap into the thinking and the psychology and behavior of those people who make these justifications to say, well, if I have a family, I'll be happier. Or if we rent and we do all these other things and I travel, I'll be happier. But the reality is still got to be grounded in, okay, well, what's next? And then how are you going to support that family? How are you going to get ahead? And how are you going to create the true time freedom that we're talking about? So this is a good segue into reduce stress. I can promise you that when you are on the journey, it's a slow, methodical journey. It is in decades, not in years. But if you get to the other side of that and you are financially free, it has the ability to significantly reduce the financial stress and anxieties that people have, because you will be forever dealing with those financial security stresses and anxieties if you put the order in the wrong, or if you just focus on spending now, instant gratification now, looking at the material things, you will never be able to achieve true freedom. And I think that's an important message.
Yeah, and I don't think I think that can be easily underestimated, how much that stress just takes away the quality of your life, because it's just like this little silent killer that just niggles away at your energy, and then that energy is how you interact with your wife or your husband or your significant other, right? And then it niggles it away at how you interact with your kids or your friends or whatever. It's just this silent little assassin that I think when people have that ultimate understanding that everything's covered, because if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first thing we need to do is make sure we've got physiological and safety needs in place, right? So if you can make sure there's food on the table and school fees are paid and fuel in the car and all those sorts of things, and without it having to be worried about, because some people are in, as you well know, Ben, some people are in jobs that they don't like, or in jobs where they are in bullying workplaces, or they're in places that are just not joyful places of work for them to earn an income. However, they need to be there because they've got they're a slave to the mortgage or whatever. So that reduced stress that comes cannot be underestimated, right? But it also gives you risk management, right? Because you've basically got a safety net or a contingency plan. If you are in a position where you do choose to work, and something comes up and you put in an environment where you get to choose. You get to choose whether you move on or you don't move on. And for a lot of people, they may be in a role that they don't like, Ben, but because of the pressure of money, they don't feel the confidence to back themselves in. Because you say to someone that you're doing anything in life that you don't like, well, the obvious solution is to say, well, why don't you change it? Well, it kind of ignores some of the fundamental concerns and anxieties and insecurities that we have. So if you actually have the freedom in place that comes from having financial security, well, then you just make a contingency plan. I'm going to change. I'm going to do this. I'm going to spend my time overseas. I'm going to spend more time with my family. I'm going to do more hobbies. And there's no ramifications from doing that. So risk management is a big part of freedom.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. Quality of life. We talk about lifestyle by design. For me, it's really clear that once you tap into a household's core values or an individual's core values, and you can then discover, okay, if that's what's important to you, you can then start to build the opportunities around that. And so you can start to sort of put the layers on top of those core values. And in a lot of cases, when you start to have more meaningful conversations with people about what brings them happiness, it actually relates to experiences. We've been talking a lot about that, over the last 12 months on this pod, and pretty much really from the beginning in terms of that. So it's never around those extravagances, and it's about building out that and enhancing that overall quality of life. And so that to me is a core element of what freedom means to people. So when you sit down and it's almost like you're doing a one-to-one focus group with the people in an interview sort of style, and they're starting to share that. And I would encourage households who are thinking about decisions around their money today, big decisions and small decisions about how they spend and what they're planning for, is ask yourself this question: what is the quality of life for us? What does it look like for us? And then how does that create the freedoms around that? Because that will truly start to ground your actions, because you've got a clear idea and clear motivation around what you're trying to achieve. So I really like that question around, talk to me about what quality of life looks like and how does that fit in with the core values in your household. And I think you'll get to a really safe place where both of you can start to think about, well, that's why we're doing this. That's why we're making these sacrifices. That's why we're investing, to be able to make sure we've got that available for us for a, well-meaning and, free retirement.
And for us to round out freedom, it has to be finishing in this place around independence, right? So if you are less dependent on external sources of income, that gives you options to work on your terms. And work is defined by you. It's actually, you go and still, create some value in the marketplace in exchange for some form of income. Great, but if it's something you don't have to rely on, that's even better, right? So I think independence, financial independence, financial freedom, these are the terms that are thrown around, Ben. But ultimately, if you look under the bonnet, what does financial independence actually mean? It means you are self-funded. It means you are your ability to serve your basic of needs around your physiological needs and your safety needs using Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You can do that on your own. You are not reliant on a boss or a paycheck or some other external event that you are out of control. You've created an environment or an ecosystem that is self-funding that allows you to do that. So I think this is best summarized as you get to work on your terms. There you go, folks. The first two were security and freedom. I'm going to quickly riff off, Ben, the rest of the list, because we actually went through 1 to 10. But just to give some people some context, I'll go through it super quick so that people can get it. But I'll go from 11 to 20 here. Improved lifestyle, 11. 12 was growth. Choose what I want to do. Work less. Happiness. Personal time. Take care of yourself. Success. Relaxation. Time for hobbies. That rounds out the top 20. And then the next 10, adventure, control, generosity, realizing dreams, better health, accomplishment, better education for kids, fulfillment, purposeful life, and a better home. So that gets us to the top 30, Ben. As we go to top 40, this is only going to 50, folks, so just hang in there. Number 31 was the finer things in life: optimism, self-worth, volunteer work, self-confidence, help society, inspire others, pride, start your own business, not wanting was number 40. And as we round this out, Ben will bring it home. Number 41 was holiday home, results, abundance, quiet times, power, better car, compassion, more big kids' toys, study again, and influence. So actually, it's 54. Actualization, style and grace, recognition, and more jewelry. So that's the list, folks. Now, from a significant sample size of 13,682.
Apartment that I've got going, and then buy another one, and then buy another one. And I'll show you a little system in terms of how you get to 7 properties in 7 years. And they're just like, bang, I'm in. And so ultimately, what you want out of an honest conversation around what money means to you is to challenge that. And a trusted advisor shouldn't be someone who just agrees with you. They should be high-fiving you on the things you're doing really well, but they should be eyeballing you on the things that doesn't quite fit in that alignment, or may not necessarily be a realistic outcome. And that's where, all right, well, let's go to the numbers in terms of whether that's plausible and realistic, and whether there's a possibility for those things to happen. And sometimes a reality check for some people is healthy. Sometimes they'll go into denial, but in other cases, you'll then know that you're going to be able to build a long-term relationship up with that particular client to be able to take them on that journey. And I think that's an important connection point in terms of back to obviously your, who's where are the customers' yachts. Well, if we hold up our end of the bargain in terms of making a plan for you to become what you plan to become, and you hold up your end of the bargain in terms of doing the spending that you said you were going to do, then we increase that. There's no guarantee. There's never any guarantee in investing, but it vastly increases the opportunity to get to that final destination, and the probability increases in terms of, because you're doing what you said you were going to do, the market's doing what we predicted it to do, and you get that marriage over the decades for that to happen. And ultimately, we then grade you through the 7 grades of financial well-being, and we see you move from financial stability to financial control to financial peace, and then ultimately it's your choice in terms of whether you want to go to financial contribution. So that just gives you an essence in that. And my final comments are these in terms of everything that we've been talking about and what we've been trying to provide a message on is really around this concept of, if you don't know your cash flows, if you don't know roughly how much money you're going to save over the course of a 12-month period, and you haven't done any work in that space to know that answer, then you're already coming from a position of unlikely to be able to achieve what money means to you, right? So align that to spend less than you earn, but then trap that surplus. And that's effectively what we've been talking about. That's why we built a platform to help you with that. And then once you've trapped that surplus, it's about making that money work for you. And then you've got choices around how you invest that money, whether you put it in term deposit, whether you put it in bonds, shares, managed funds, sort of direct investments, commercial investments, whatever that looks like, or residential property. That is a choice that you will then make. And if obviously you can control a higher value through sensible leverage because you're really clear on your cash flows and how that works, you start to then see that story playing out. So my message here is simple as I close out. Lifestyle by design is not possible. And realizing what money means to you in terms of putting all of that discovery story together and your core values just simply won't happen unless you're prepared to put the pieces of the puzzle in place to create a platform for success. There's still no guarantees, but I tell you what, it vastly increases because we see it in the thousands of people that we've seen. If they keep doing what they said they were going to do, then you'll just see over time the magic of compound and all of that value growth will start to happen, and you will become financially free. Firstly, you'll become financially secure, so that's security, and then you'll have that freedom story as part of that particular story. So that's all I wanted to finish on with this section, Bryce.
Well, I guess good points, by the way. So there's a few key takeaways that we just want to round out here too, Ben, for the list of all of those priorities from a very large sample of people. We get to see what they prioritize. So here's some key takeaways. Clearly prioritizing security, if that ends at number one, that makes sense because 10,406 respondents selected it. So that reveals that fundamental human desire for safety and protection, and it represents a safety net and means a stable future. So that kind of makes sense. But there was also an element of the quest for balance, right? Because work-life balance had 8,837 respondents, and time with family had 7,623. Both of them were in the top 10. So that was showing time over things as a priority, which you and I just absolutely loved. And I wonder if it just reflects the fast-paced world priorities that we've got now, because everything's sort of moving faster. Speed's gone, back post-pandemic. So work-life balance and time with family being in the top 10, that warmed my heart that we're talking to the right people and we're attracting the right people who love our message around that sort of thing, experiences over things. And money as a means to freedom, right? So freedom was the second most chosen category, 9,692 respondents. Lifestyle choices was 10th, and choose what I want to do was 13th. So they see money is a tool to enable choice and autonomy in people's lives, Ben. Okay, some other takeaways is the tangible benefit versus emotional fulfillment. Many respondents connected to money with tangible benefits. So travel, which was fifth at 7,842 people. That's a lot of people, Ben. Comfort, 7,397. So that was eighth. But also that emotional and personal fulfillment. Peace of mind, ninth, 6,959 people. Happiness came 15th. 5,117 people, and fulfillment came in at 28th, and that's 3,396. So that signifies a balance between the material and the emotional significance of money as well. There was also some giving back and personal growth, which was really nice to see. So some noteworthy categories that emerged: growth, generosity, volunteer work, and help society. That's nice to see as well.
Lovely.
The materialism versus the intangible. So you had superficial or materialistic desires. They were actually low polars, which was nice. More jewelry, 112 people. Out of all of those people, Ben, 112.
So refreshing.
Now, jewelry is good, right? But it's not necessarily the driver. And more big kids' toys came in at 1,026 people wanted that. So they were, these households were prioritizing essential needs. So it wasn't about extravagance. It kind of matches the stats that most people only buy one or two. Therefore, it makes sense. It's not about toys. One or two properties, that is, right?
And Bryce, can I just jump in there quickly? For those people who might be sitting, I actually picked big boys' toys. Context for everyone, like you might be someone who races cars, bikes, or whatever that may. So if that's your passion that gives you high experience and high joy, please don't take that the wrong way in terms of materialistic things. If that is your pursuit, same with jewelry. If your pursuit is collecting diamonds or whatever, like we don't want to be judging those particular people, but just generally speaking, we love the fact that it's not a high motivator in terms of what money means to you.
Great point, Ben. So here's the point. The best financial asset you can have is not needing to impress anyone, right? So if you want more big boys toys for your own personal pursuits and it's about you internally, fine. If you want more jewelry because it brings you an incredible amount of joy, fine. But if you need to impress other people, you're dancing with the devil, because that's where you will, in our observations, Ben, people start to get derailed, go off on track because they're chasing something from other people that generally won't come because not people aren't paying enough attention to them. But that is usually, if money simple behavior is hard, that is a behavior that the quicker you can get to the peak financial asset of not trying to impress everyone. And let's be honest, we're not all robots. We're all doing it in some form or another.
Yeah, sure.
But if you can get onto the spectrum of not needing to do that, it's great. So, but I double down on what you say, which is good. Hey, here's another takeaway, Ben, around education and health. It didn't rank as high as we kind of expected. Better health was 3,861, okay, but it's still well under 50%. Better education for the kids, 3,430. I think once you get some of those security and freedoms, I think they then become more of a priority. Self-actualization, realization of that personal potential and self-fulfillment, that actually ranks low on the list. It's actually high on Maslow's list. It's the very top. We had 707 people, but as I said before, I reckon that stuff is likely to increase in priority as freedom is realized. Because once you can free up your mind from the day-to-day worries and concerns around making ends meet and kids' braces and are they at school and how do we make sure they're not on screens and all that sort of stuff. If you've got the freedom and headspace, I reckon that'll jump up.
100%. It does. It absolutely, and it showed up in the research as well that once you have those fundamentals, you're challenging yourself on the journey of fulfillment and exploration. So it does absolutely happen, like you just said.
You get the baseline done, which is good. It kind of makes sense, right? And then finally, the takeaway here around power and influence, they had really low numbers. Power was 1,250. Interesting. Still reasonable number of people. And then influence at 963. So it kind of emphasizes that our audience is a get-rich-slow and conservative group rather than needing to peacock and show what they've got. All right, Ben, let's round this out. I'm interested to know what surprised you the most, and I'll share what surprised me the most. But there was a couple of late pollers that did any late pollers catch your eye?
Yeah, I thought control would be a little bit higher. Like I honestly feel like, if money allows me to be in control, but I sort of get that people might have said, well, I've got safety and freedom. So is it assumed that means I've got control? But I mean, one of the biggest challenges I see in most households is they really do lack control. They think they're in control. They think, well, I got this. I know how to run money in my household, but there's slippages and there's laziness everywhere. And so I would have liked to have seen that a little bit higher in terms of being able to that. But people might have also taken control in as, right, so now I can be, authoritarian. I've got all this money. So they may have interpreted control in a different light. And then the other one for me, which you mentioned a moment ago, was the better health. I mean, ultimately, having a good, healthy situation and being in a position where you can, if something does go wrong, being able to afford that and get the best medical care you can. Obviously, prevention is better than cure, but in terms of a focus around health, in terms of having the money to be able to provide that for you or your loved ones, I would have thought that might have gone up a little bit higher, but they were the sort of two surprising ones for me.
Yeah, health is real wealth, right? But for me, the surprise late poller just was time for hobbies. That was at 21, and I just wonder if it's an underdeveloped focus on hobbies, given lives are too busy, right, with other digital distractions. I think again. That's the whole analogy of the plane uses most of its fuel when it's taking off. So once it levels out, we use less, and I think that comes back to the original point we were just making a second ago, that people will be able to focus more time on hobbies, because who with a busy life right now gets time to prioritize that. But I thought aspirationally people would have probably prioritized that at least in the top 20. It's outside of the top 20. It's at 21. So interesting. But there you go, folks. A survey of 13,000 832 people over 5 years, just for the avoidance of doubt. So this is a long study. Gets to see what really matters to people. So the top 10 were lifestyle choices at 10, peace of mind at 9, comfort at 8, stability at 7, time with family at 6, travel at 5, providing for family at 4, work-life balance at 3, freedom at 2, and bringing it home at number 1 with a whopping 10,406 of those 13 odd thousand people. They all wanted to prioritize security, Ben. So interesting, huh? That's what money means to folks.
And I'd love to, I hope this starts a conversation with your loved one and your family about, what it is that provides purpose, provides meaning to you, and allows you to explore this. Because if you do know what they are and those core drivers, it's amazing how motivated you will get off the back of that if you do have a clear understanding of what you're trying to achieve.
And if you've got clarity around that, you've got a better chance of hitting it, right? Because if you're sitting there and you're teeing off at golf, Ben, and where you want to go is where you want the ball to land, which kind of makes sense. That's the focus, that's the why, that's the North Star. But if you're sitting there and all you're thinking about is there's water to the right and you hope you miss the trees and all that, that's the metaphor for life, right? If we get distracted by the water and the trees and we're not focusing on where we want the ball to land, chances are the ball probably won't land there. Chances are the ball will probably land in the water.
Yeah.
So it's kind of important that we get this. Now, folks, in our summer series, we're going to ask each and every single person who we talk to what money means to them. Because what you're going to see is stories of people who have taken action and are very clear on what their why is. And because they're very clear on what their why is, you're going to hear some incredible stories of transformation. But most of all, you're going to hear stories of people, Ben, because we've had a brief chat with these people before we talk to them, and they're all pretty clear on saying, I'm not sure there's much in my story that people will find interesting. And I think that statement's really interesting to unpack, because we don't need it to be entertainment. We actually just need to know what were the highs and the lows, what were the things that got in your way when you needed to make a decision to put one foot in front of the other? What were some of the niggling thoughts that were coming up in your mind? What were some of the things that you had to overcome in your life? What were some of the people in your world who were saying, yes, do that. No, that's not a good idea. That's what makes the stories interesting. And from our experience from the last summer series, we know that once we just settle in and we dive into the layers and we see what the thoughts are going through, people get a chance to really understand. Because, Ben, you and I have enjoyed great success in our own portfolios. Some people can listen to this and say, well, that's all right for you too. Well, the whole point of the summer series is to say, well, there's other people who've actually been doing this. For sure, Ben and I have been doing it for 20 plus years. Some people have been doing it under a decade, but you see the steps they did, what they took, and the results they've been getting, which is super, super powerful. So that's why, Ben, we have been setting up this episode in the run-up to our summer series, because it's important to focus on the why. It's important to focus on where you want the golf ball to land, Ben, not on where the golf ball could be if you don't stay focused.
Well said, mate. Well said.
All right, so my life hack today is actually going to be around a veteran of the content space. His name's Brian Tracy, Ben. He's best known for his work in with sales professionals. But I found this little clip that I liked, and the summarizing of it is, and I did it. So let's have a little listen as to why some people succeed more.
Why is it that some people are more successful than others? Why is this? And I looked around me and I saw people younger than me doing better than me, and they weren't any smarter than me. Nothing will make you madder than to see somebody who's dumber than you, who's doing better than you. And you say, how can this idiot be doing so well? And I did something that very few people ever do. I went to the best salespeople and I said, how come you're so successful? And they told me what they were doing, and I did it. And I made more sales. And when I got into business, I asked managers, how do you manage in a business like this? How do you organize it? And they told me, and I did it. And so one of the greatest success principles that you'll ever find is learn from the experts. Learn from the people who are already demonstrating the results that you want to get. Read their books, listen to their programs, attend their courses, learn from, and ask them. And they will always tell you. And you can save yourself years of hard work by simply learning from people who've already learned it by themselves.
Okay, Ben. So the key takeaway from that video is the section where he goes, "And I did it." So basically, he learned from someone. They told him what to do, and then he said, "And I did it." So I don't necessarily love the bit at the beginning about people that are dumber and they're idiots. That's not the purpose of
No.
why I brought that up. It was around, and this was that video was that video is 30, 40 years old, right? So maybe 20, 30 years old. But the point is, my life hack today is this. He said one of the greatest success principles you'll ever find is to learn from people who are already demonstrating the results that you want to get. And you can save yourself years of hard work by simply learning from people who have already learned it by themselves. So the key part of the video is this, and I did it. And I did it. That was the takeaway that I wanted to share with our audience, right? So, and why is that important as a life hack, Ben? Because we're about to go into summer series with 8 people. A lot of people say, "Oh, that's all right for you and Ben, successful in property." Let's show some people who are people in the streets who are doing
Everyday
their
people,
thing,
Ross. Everyday people.
everyday people who don't have a platform like ours, but they are just as passionate and doing meaningful work and working towards their North Star. So that is why I wanted that to be my life hack today. You have an opportunity for the next 8 weeks whilst you are winding down for the year, doing whatever it is you're doing during the festive and holiday season, just to absorb these stories. And the key takeaway that we want you to get from the summer series is this. We're going to ask them what money means to them so you can see what their North Star is. But I just want you to marinate on the simple things that you will hear these people say on how they overcame the propensity to keep status quo where they did nothing. They put themselves in a position where they and you'll hear some of these stories, Ben, because we know a lot of the backstories on these stories. We're about to have these conversations with these people, but there is adversity. There is people coming up against interest rate resistance and headwinds. There are people who have got relationship challenges and in some cases breakdowns. There are people who are doing it on their own and feel like they don't need someone else to help them do it. There is clues and little tips and little things along the way because we're all incentivized to stay status quo, but just listen to the little steps that they took to actually get in the arena and take some steps forward, Ben.
Bryce, I'll say it like this. They are aspiring Australians, everyday Australians who are aspiring, and they're aspiring property investors, and they are inspiring us in terms of taking action. And so I think that's a beautiful segue to And it's obviously going to mean Melbourne's going to again suffer economically from attracting the best talent, and obviously people mobility, which has an immediate and direct economic impact. So there you go, folks. We said it would happen, and it is playing out so. And so what are you going to do, Victorian government, around incentivising investment rather than continuing to tax us and continuing to make it harder to provide rental accommodation for the much needed renters of Victoria? The challenges out there.
Seems logical outcome, doesn't it? So there you go. Hey, big show, Ben. It's always a pleasure. Talking about the North Star with a lot of data has been fun today, and hopefully people have found that super insightful. And hopefully what it's done, folks, it's given you the thought to go, am I super clear on what my North Star is, or do I need to put a bit of work in that? And if that's the case, it's a beautiful time of year for you to actually do that. But settle in, folks. Next week's we've already spoken to the summer series for next week, and it is a belter. So let me promise you, strap in. It is a really, really good story of the human spirit overcoming and nailing it and buying investment properties, and several investment properties, Ben, and not just for someone who lives in the big capital city. So it's a rip away for us to start off the series, Ben. But mate, until next week when we put the sunscreen on, peak hats, we start swatting flies, mate. Until next week.
Well, just remember, knowledge is empowering, but only if you act on it. And just a closing point, I've got another update in the economic and RB update next week. So look out for that. Obviously, I'll be updating you on what's happening in the property markets and some early predictions in terms of where the market's heading in different markets around the country as well. So that would be worth sticking into on Tuesday as well.
Well said. See you next week, folks.